Well, we start off talking about Albuquerque's Veterans Hospital again, and even more stories now of vets having to wait and wait and wait to get help.
Yeah, that's right. A New Mexico lawmaker says that thousands of veterans were assigned doctors and never got to see them. Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham says officials at the VA Medical Center in Albuquerque reported as many as 3,000 patients did not get to see a doctor. Congressional staffers were apparently told that the practice of assigning doctors was aimed at balancing the problem of too many patients and too few doctors. Grisham says that she's now investigating whether the practice put patients at risk. This new information comes as the nation deals with allegations that delayed care and secret waiting lists led to the deaths of some veterans. A UNM professor who was among many protesters arrested this week at Monday night's City Hall meeting is now banned from City Hall.
Yeah, as you mentioned, he was more than one of a dozen protesters arrested after the sit-in at the mayor's office on Monday. Yesterday, David KRQE here pled not guilty to a felony charge of battery on a peace officer. He was accused of pushing an officer with his chest. Mr. KRQE was arrested along with a dozen other demonstrators who were demanding the mayor do more to crack down on the problems with Albuquerque's police department. The other protesters face misdemeanor charges, but again, Mr. KRQE is facing a felony charge, and the judge ordered him to stay away from City Hall or risk going back to jail. Now here's what KRQE told us after this hearing.
I want to just ask if anyone has any information, please pass it along to my attorney, David Plotsky. There are many witnesses and a lot of video that shows the truth of what happened during our peaceful protest.
KRQE's attorney plans to ask the court to adjust the City Hall ban so KRQE can be allowed at City Council meetings. Mr. KRQE says he will continue to hold peaceful protests. 5:34, here is a weird one for you to say the least. A man from Michigan drove 1,600 miles across the country with his dead girlfriend in the passenger seat. He says he didn't even know she was dead until he got right here to New Mexico.
There is no crime. It's not illegal for carrying a body across the country.
Ray Tomlinson left his home in Michigan last week, headed to Arizona to pick up his girlfriend. Mr. Tomlinson says his girlfriend had just checked out of a mental health facility and was on several meds when they hit the road headed back to Michigan. Then later he noticed she would not wake up.
I went like this, because she's sitting in the front seat of the car next to me. And I just said, you want something? And at that point in time, she was stiff.
Mr. Tomlinson never stopped, never called for help. Instead, he propped up her body, put sunglasses on her face, and a stuffed animal in her lap. I'm not kidding. Again, he is not facing any criminal charges right now.
An Applebee's manager who admits to videotaping a man in the bathroom is out of jail this morning. Roswell police arrested 26-year-old Ramon Chavez yesterday. He is charged with voyeurism. The victim told police that he was using the restroom last month at the restaurant when he says he saw Chavez hold his phone above his stall. Chavez told police that he was trying to catch people vandalizing the bathroom and used his phone to look into the other stall rather than step on the toilet. Chavez has been suspended without pay from the Applebee's. He is bonded out of jail. Albuquerque police need your help finding a murder suspect who could be driving around in the victim's SUV. 30-year-old Alfred Begay was found shot to death in the parking lot near San Pedro and Copper last week. Cops say that the suspect took off in Begay's 2008 Chevy Trailblazer. It's silver with a UNM license plate of 13175. If you see this vehicle, call police immediately. Well, you rarely hear about valley fever in New Mexico, but it has now taken the life of a man in Carlsbad.
And his family thinks he may have gotten sick in his own backyard. Valley fever is a fungal infection that gets into your lungs, and it even grows a spore that causes pneumonia. The doctors say it grows in the soil in the desert. They say you can get infected simply by breathing it in. There have been about 300 cases of valley fever in New Mexico since 2006, and so far, Paul Moore here is the only person who has died from it in that time. Young guy there. Sadly, doctors didn't even know Moore had valley fever until it was too late.
By that time, the pneumonia had progressed to a stage that it was just very hard for him to overcome.
Moore's family has now made it their mission to make sure people know about valley fever. Doctors say more than 95% of valley fever cases happen in Arizona or California. Well, the state health department here in New Mexico says 2 bats in the South Valley have tested positive for rabies, the latest on Tuesday. One of the rabid bats had crawled onto a woman's bare foot. She's now getting shots to make sure she doesn't get rabies. Last month, rabies was reported in skunks around Carlsbad, the latest in a series of rabies outbreaks there. Health officials say make sure your kids stay away from wild animals and make sure your pets get the rabies vaccine.
All right, the high-tech company called Lavu is moving into a larger space in downtown Albuquerque. The company says that they have outgrown their offices at the Old Town location and they'll take their business to Central near 2nd Street. The firm creates software that makes payment transactions easier for businesses. They often compete with companies in Silicon Valley. Lavu is expected to grow from just 42 to nearly 100 people. Donald Sterling has agreed to sell the LA Clippers to former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. Sterling agreed to sell the team for a whopping $2 billion. The 80-year-old is also dropping his suit against the NBA. He was banned for life and fined after a racist rant that he made to a former lover at his home. That conversation obviously was taped and then leaked out for all to hear. So big controversy there, but nonetheless, the LA Clippers will have a new owner.